There is actually a reason why my name is not on this slide. I'm Franziska Frey. I'm Associate Librarian for Preservation, Conservation, and Imaging for the Harvard Library. But I really see myself as one voice of an excellent team, not only across all of Harvard, but also with some of the institutions here in the audience. So, as you all know, we had a vision as well. And if I look back, it's actually thinking in Harvard terms, this was maybe a little bit over 2 years ago, and just seeing where we are right now, it's lightning speed. So imagine an image viewer, content from any repository that lets scholars, of course, compare, investigate in detail, but as many of you, of course, we are still for a little bit also kind of in our siloed page delivery services that really at the moment don't fulfill that vision. But as I said, we have come a long way. And that's really thanks to a project that is an excellent collaboration, mainly between Harvard and Stanford, where we helped develop Mirador for HarvardX. That's the MOOC component, the organization within Harvard that runs the large online MOOCs. And we really had the project start in the middle of about 2012, defining what that project would be, defining the collaboration with Stanford. The delivery of the page viewer was just a couple months ago, and now we are in the last phase, really doing some pedagogical enhancements, working on annotation and a couple of other tools that we would like in our page viewer for the launch of the book. That is a course that's going to be taught online by, I think, 10 different faculty members that is going to start in the next academic year. We were really fortunate to have this course or this sequence of courses as an example or as the pilot for the development of Mirador because of the variety of materials that are being used in that course for teaching. So anything from medieval manuscripts to modern books. And it really helped us draw in a lot of different materials and learn from that, with having to really making the tool work for many of these materials. So just a little bit of the timeline. A little bit over a year ago, we started recruiting faculty for research and pedagogy case studies. Again, across Harvard, we wanted to look at different applications of the tool. At the moment, we are working with 7 faculty members, and we just started a few months ago also working with a couple colleagues from the Harvard Art Museums. Where we are right now is really looking at annotation, collaboration with the broader IIIF community, on a partnership with Yale on annotation, and really making sure that everything is in place for the launch of the book in a couple of months. I have mentioned that this was a collaboration within Harvard. It was really collaborative software development, I would say almost at its best. Lightning speed, excellent team, small team, but things just kind of fell in place. So it was HarvardX that helped with putting some of the money in place for this project. Library Technology Services, that is actually part of the IT organization at Harvard, but is helping to develop and supporting all the library technology for the Harvard Library. Faculties from the digital arts and humanities, and kind of in the middle of the triangle, that's really where the library is, with all the different repositories, with the archives, with all the materials, and making sure that whatever the faculty need for their course could be presented with this new viewer. For the software development, really excellent collaboration, as was mentioned earlier, with the demo of Mirador between Stanford and Harvard, and the 2 main developers are actually here in the room. Again, fabulous work to get this done in such a short period of time. Collaborators within Harvard really different archives and repositories around the university. We had actually quite a large number of materials that were digitized, especially for this course. We were fortunate to have some funding to make this working, so we could work with some of the faculty members and specifically digitize some of the medieval manuscripts, but also scrolls and other types of materials for this course. And we're actually, as I speak, we are in the process of digitizing more materials for this course. Also, as I already mentioned, a collaboration with the Harvard Art Museums. As you will see when I show a couple of examples, some of the examples come from the collections across Harvard, and that's something it's not unique to Harvard, but you will see that more and more in higher ed institutions here in the US, that there is a tendency to actually use real objects in teaching. And of course, if you have online courses, you cannot really use the real objects. What do you do there? You digitize the materials and you really bring in everything that we have, the richness we have in our special collections and libraries. Of course, across Harvard, we have a lot of materials. We have about 25% of the medieval manuscripts in North America. And now with Mirador, it's possible to really bring together not only the other medieval manuscripts across North America, but also the holdings within Europe. And you have already seen a couple of the examples, for example, from eCodices in Switzerland. What we, of course, also have is a large research community, faculty and graduate students, and a pedagogic community when we think about our faculty and undergraduates. And we really, with this project, want to target all of this. Now, specifically within the Harvard Library, so the Mirador was really developed for HarvardX, for the online course. It's going to be launched as a pilot for the History of the Book course. But in parallel, about a year ago, we developed, or we decided for the Harvard Library to also replace our aging page delivery system for our digital repository. And we started developing Mirador to replace that page delivery service. At the moment, we have a couple more months going where we do development, but a beta version is almost available for deployment. And over the summer, we're going to look for faculty input to see what needs still to be done. We'll have for a while our old viewer, the new viewer that people can use, and we are looking and collecting requirements. We have a group that's going to be actively working with the faculty over the next few months to, of course, deliver a new viewer that has everything that the old viewer had and more. What is already, of course, available, and you have seen that in quite a few of the demos this morning, is an improved book display for Mirador. So on the left-hand side, that's our current viewer. On the right-hand side, that's how our books, our medieval manuscripts are going to be presented. And one of the things that we have been focusing the last few months, and we are going to focus over the next year or so, is really working out a number of different use cases around teaching, research, and then also creating collections that bring together materials from libraries and museums. And what we want to do is really push some of the boundaries with these use cases. You have heard quite a bit about annotations. We are working with a number of different faculty members to integrate these annotations then into databases. And we want to really learn from the faculty members what they need. So we are working closely with them. We are going to work with their research assistant to understand what they need, how they want to work, develop the requirements, and then try to really implement something that's useful for their research. We also want to expand, and of course that's in collaboration with the IIIF community. We want to move into time-based media, film and video, and recordings of musical performances. At the end of the day, what we would really like is one viewer for all kinds of different materials, that you don't have to switch independent of what you are looking at. And we are working with a couple of faculty members in this area as well. We're also looking at installations, modern art installations. And I think one of the things that's also important once you are starting to push in some of these areas, it's not only about the viewer, but it's also about creating the materials that the viewer needs to present. If you think about medieval manuscripts, you have, page by page, we have a long history in photographing or digitizing these materials. But if you think about modern art installation, if you think about film and video, there are also frontiers there where we need to collaborate with people that work with with camera technologies, and really make sure that we create the viewers that can also display some of these new file formats. We have also, when we started talking to our colleagues at the museums, we have talked about the possibility of the development of toolkits, for example, for conservators, which would have image processing tools, for example. You could think about handwriting recognition, and you could think about that for different fields. Again, hand in hand, developing this with really the people who would be then using these different toolkits, depending on what the application is. I don't need to do a demo since a lot of this has been demoed already earlier. So, page view of books, of course, is going to be improved. This is a scroll that's about 35 feet long. As you can imagine, if you want to use this for teaching, impossible, but you can digitize it, and then you can, of course, zoom in. So that's another area that we are really interested in, is how can you now all of a sudden use materials in digital form that was just not possible in the conventional format, because you just can't see the detail at the same way. You have seen our friend here from the Harvard Art Museums, so all kinds of 3D applications, and how do you actually use the viewer for this? You have seen this image in the morning as well. This is a screen that we have in the Harvard Art Museum, 9,000 pixels, so Mirador really scales really well from your cell phone to a large screen. And again, working here with researchers, with students, with faculty to create applications that is useful for their research is one of our goals. Also working across the different libraries at Harvard. This is an example from the law school at Harvard. So different types of text, different archival materials. And as you can imagine, with every field, there are different questions that have to be answered, and probably some different tools that might have to be developed. Another frontier that's really interesting for us to look at in the future is compare and make learning tools interoperable, whether a class is being taught on campus, online or beyond, because you're going to see more and more of that blended teaching. And a last point I want to make here is it's really important for us in the future to look at, to do a little bit of research on how people are using these tools, using, for example, eye tracking technology, looking at, are people zooming? What are they doing? Which objects do they look at? So there is a whole field of research actually out there waiting for us to tackle in understanding how people are using these new tools. Thank you. And I think I'm just out of time.